Lifted KC, Show Me You Care KC, and the Strongest Man in the Room present the Absence of a Father Workshop, Saturday, July 15th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Lucille H. Bluford Library at 3050 Prospect Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. Available for all girls aged 13 and up. Join us as we help set the bar that so many of our young girls in the community never get to witness. Featuring guest speakers and appearances by Ryan Harvey, Pharaoh Bam, Jay Todd, and Osco Bolton III. The Absence of a Father Workshop, Saturday, July 15th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Tickets available now at Eventbrite, and for more information, contact 816-844-5999. The time for our men to step up is now.
All right, so it looks like it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to this session of Unpacking for episode 5 of the Blacked Out Couch. The last episode 5, featured the brothers, and our show topic was broken homes and generational curses. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I believe the link is pinned for the pinned links in the room. But fellas, I'm gonna go ahead and just get us started. I'm gonna start bringing some of these ladies on up to the stage because they seem very anxious tonight. And as Princess pointed out, there's more sisters here in the room tonight with us than brothers. So,
That's true.
brothers, let's say a silent prayer for us, for each of us, and let's hope that this goes well. I'm gonna go ahead and throw out an icebreaker question just to get us started, and anybody can chime in with any feedback or commentary on this. So I'm gonna just throw out the same icebreaker that we threw out to begin our episode. So tonight's episode, we're talking about broken homes and generational curses. So the first question will be, what is your definition of a broken home? Let's dive right into it.
That's a good question. Like, in my opinion, a broken home, it could be all in varies. Like, you can say like somebody staying in a parent, one parent home. Um, to me, I can't really get in depth with a broken home because from my childhood and experience, despite the fact that what I went through as at a young age, I wouldn't say my home was broken. You know what I'm saying? It was just, we kind of was going through the struggles, but we always maintained to find a way through those struggles. So, a broken home, it could all just be like varies of poverty, you know, lack of opportunities. You know what I'm saying? Things in that nature. That's just my opinion about certain things.
No doubt, right on. Anybody else want to chime in? Sisters or brothers? We've opened
Can
up the
I chime
room.
in?
Yes, ma'am, Miss Devin. You have the
Okay.
floor.
So I come in peace, brothers. I mean, y'all did a phenomenal episode. So let me just start by giving you guys your flowers. I watched the whole show, Rodney, and it was amazing.
Right on.
But I feel like a broken home is when a family is being raised off of trauma, off of pain. There's no healing, so that's just gonna allow those generational curses and more pain to be presented into that family, and then they're not breaking the cycle. So that if that makes sense. That's my definition.
Right on, right on. Appreciate that. Anybody else want to chime in? We're defining broken homes. What is your definition of a broken home? Give us your commentary or feedback.
Webster says it's the a broken home is when one of the parents is missing.
No doubt. No doubt. Anybody else? Miss
I agree with
Princess?
that. I definitely agree with
Miss
that.
Janine? See, we got a couple of other people in the audience. Mr. Taraji's still in there. I see Brother Marcus. We got the pastor on with us. I would agree with what JB said. I'm a very literal person, so I just tend to go off of the official definitions of things. So if I was to answer the question, to me, it's plain and simple. It's black and white. A broken home is one of the parents is missing, either through desertion or death or some other unforeseen circumstance, but one of the parents is missing out of the home. That's the official definition of a broken home, and that's the one that I always go back to when we discussing this. So, anybody else want to chime in?
All of those definitions. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Um, all of those definitions that have been given thus far, um, hit the nail on the head. Um, there, there are different variations, as far as broken homes. Like, for example, I didn't even realize that I actually came from a broken home until I started therapy, because I was raised in a household with both my grandparents. My father, the drug addict, and then I explained to y'all I think maybe it was last week that my mom passed when I was a baby.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
so yeah, so I'm like, so I guess yeah, in a sense, different variations. It doesn't necessarily have to be just because um, the father, or excuse me, not just father. I'm thinking about my sons. But any parent, either parent is missing or from the equation. So yeah, yeah, and forgive me, I had to correct me, but I've been thinking about my sons heavily lately because um they can say that they came from a broken home because their father chose not be to father them, if you will. I guess whatever. But anyway,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely understood. Understood.
yeah.
I'm sorry, y'all. I couldn't figure out how to get off of mute to save my life, but I'm here. So
How you doing, Miss Janine?
I'm doing great. How's everybody tonight?
Doing good.
That's
Hanging in there.
great. That's great. I I agree with everyone on what a broken home is. But if I had to sum it down, I would say a broken home is a situation where is some form of trauma, drama, resistance of all the family members involved. Whereas if something wasn't where everybody wasn't working on one accord, that was for the betterment of everybody involved. Because it's so many situations. It's people that have both parents in the house and all the family, they are broken. Then you have some who father lives this place, mother lives this way, but they get along. The child is happy, healthy, and the child turns out all right. So it's so many different circumstances, but I feel that when everybody involved is not moving on one accord for the betterment of everybody involved, it's broken.
Absolutely. Right on.
I
Anybody
want
else
to.
want to chime in?
Yes, Princess is here. Can you all hear me? Sound check, sound check.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. I would chime in, like everyone else. Agree with everything that everyone has said, but I would probably add a little bit of another detail where I'd say if like a critical component of what a child needs in order to grow and develop is missing, that to me is a broken home. I do think that it's possible for a two-parent household to exist and that still be a broken home, especially if one of the parents are around but not really involved in the child's life. Think about drunkens, think about, people who might have mental health issues that are not being met and they might be causing abuse or traumas. So I would want to just add in that technicality.
Right on. Anybody else? So I appreciate everybody's feedback. I don't think that there's no wrong answers that have been given so far tonight. And broken homes is it's a big plague in our community. If we just gonna be frank about it, there's a lot of single parent house homes and homes where children are being raised either without the parent or like some of you guys have mentioned tonight. Not in a healthy environment. An environment that's full of toxicity can still be considered a broken home by many folks. And I think we all kind of agree here on that. One of the things that we spoke about in our episode 5, we talked about the dynamics of single parent situations and what the normal situation is in the culture. So, normally when we're talking about single parent homes, we tend to be speaking about a single mother where the father is absent. So, we did acknowledge that in our episode. We talked a great deal about the absence of the black man in homes, but one of the points that was brought up is a very interesting point, and I just want to get everybody's feedback on this. You can tell me if you agree or disagree with this. So, one of the comments that was made is it said, in a single parent situation, the closest thing to a two parent household is a single father household, a household in which the father is a single parent and not the mother being the one that has that burden. I want to get everybody's feedback. Would you agree with that statement? Do you think that statement is true or false? Don't do
I
that.
don't know if it was my phone or not. Can you read that again? It sounded like you was
Okay, yeah,
breaking
repeat
up.
that for me.
Yeah, yeah. So I was talking about our episode, and one of the points that was made in the episode, it says, in a single parent situation, the closest thing to a two parent household is a single father household, one in which the father is the primary guardian versus the mother being the one to have that burden. So the question is that something that you would agree with or disagree with?
Statistically, I agree with, like, statistics show that's true. Uh, and in terms of, so let's say, and this actually goes to anybody, but if it's a good man, like a guy with his head on straight, yeah, I mean, what what can't he do? So yeah, he's gonna do better because, and let me qualify that statement. So I say that from just a position of leadership. So as a man in the house, if I have a woman in the house with me or not, I'm supposed to be the leader. And that's if you're coming from a biblical standpoint. So with that, if I'm the leader, I can do everything. I'm actually I'm there to uh what's the word I'm looking for? Articulations at a standstill right now. I'm trying to help my son get ready. Basically, I, I- I'm I have the ability to do everything in the household that needs to be done, except I delegate it as the leader. That makes sense. And I'll be quiet.
I don't.
As a woman, I'm gonna agree. I heard Ryan's perspective on it as well, and being a woman and also being in a situation similar, I just feel like we as women we nurture, but the man is the leader. So, like he was saying, to be able to provide leadership, to be able to provide protection and financial stability and security, that comes from a man. So as a woman and as a mother that has one try to raise children single handedly, but then two, also allowing my children to live with their father so that he could play that role. It definitely takes a man that is emotionally sound, I would say, but who also is open to resources. I don't think, not even a woman, but even with a man, it requires you being able to have access to resources if you're going to be a single parent. You need resources in a two parent household, but when you're doing it by yourself, you're going to need to double those resources. So if you have pride and ego issues that are not going to allow you to seek the things necessary to be the provider, be the protector for your child, then I wouldn't put a kid in that situation just to save face and say a man is raising his child.
Right on.
Yeah,
Anybody
no,
else?
I also do agree. Like I said, with everybody, it all just depends on the status of the father as far as like leadership. If he's able to provide a steady source of stability and support, it all varies into that position for him. So I definitely do agree with that statement.
Right on.
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
What's going on, brother Marcus? Doing all
All
right.
all righty. Hopefully, y'all can hear me okay. Connections is not too great where we're at, but I agree with the statement, but I want to add a little something to it, especially for a man that is open to continue to learn. And I'm speaking from a father of two young ladies, and prior to having kids, I desired to have daughters, but I wanted my son first in order to just with the dynamics that we had, so my son could I could experiment with my son, if you will, lack of better words, but he could also watch over little sister. But one of the reasons that I desired to have daughters was so I can kind of teach them the game, teach them from a man's perspective. And I heard this on the call, on you all, the call from the previous week, just of how to carry yourself, present yourself, and that sort of thing. And so I think it is possible, but the man also has to be vulnerable in a sense. I have a conversation with my daughter on several occasions, just reminding her that I've never had a 17-year-old daughter before. So we're going to learn through this process together. So just give me a little leeway, give me time to think about things and that sort of stuff, and just be able to learn and grow together. But in the end, it's going to be what daddy sees what's going to be best for you. So not that I'm going to try to put you in a lock and key where you can't go out and have fun, but we're going to try to balance this thing out. So going back to the question, can it happen? Yes, it can. But the individual need to have some guidance. Need to have God in their life, man. If not, what are we doing? What guidance do you have as the head to be able to teach and raise your family up?
I love that. I love that point. That was another point that was made in our episode when we were just speaking about leadership and who's the head from a biblical standpoint. And one of the other points that Ryan made was that the man being the head is the one who's the connection to God. And so, in an ideal home, an ideal situation where the man has his head on straight, he also has a relationship with God, and that in turn is a domino effect with the blessings in the home. So I do love that point that you made there, brother Marcus. I'm gonna expand on this question and get you all's feedback on this. So, um, one of the other points that was made, and I think JB made this point, we were talking about single mothers, and the point that he made was that women, they get put into these situations being a single mother, that and it's a situation that a woman really shouldn't find herself in. And what he meant by that was it's a situation that a woman is not necessarily built for to hold everything down, to be that sole provider, to be that sole guardian when there's a child in the picture. And I agree with that. I agree with the fact that women get put into these situations that they're not necessarily built for, but they find a way. They find a way to survive. They find a way either through trial and error, even if they aren't doing the greatest job. It's a burden that's put on them, and they find a way. So my question to the room is, if the roles were reversed, and this was another dynamic that we spoke about in our episode, if the roles were reversed, where if there was a broken home situation where the parents' relationship didn't work out, if the roles were reversed and instead of the mother being the one who automatically takes that child up under her care and becomes a single parent, if the roles were reversed and that was the father, this is for all the parents in the room, as well as those that may not have kids. If the roles were reversed, is that something that you could see yourself being okay with? Would you allow a child to go under the father's care as the primary provider and guardian? And if you are a father, is that something that you could see yourself doing?
So I'll speak. So as a father of four, I'm absolutely on board if something were to happen with me having primary or sole custody of my kids and holding them down. Because for me, it's about legacy. So my first child was born 18 years ago. And from that day on, it was all about legacy to me. So it's about taking care of them.
Right on.
Yeah, and I actually agree with him as well. Like I said, it just all just varies into the position that I'm in. If I'm able to provide as far as mostly stability and financially, then yeah, I'll be all on board and everything, you know what I'm saying, be in the right mental frame to be able to do that for my kids, you know. So even though I'm not a person that has I don't have kids yet, but I could imagine myself being into that position. So as long as I could be able to provide stability, support, and everything, then yeah, I definitely would be on board for that. So I do agree.
Brother Rodney, repeat your question for me. I didn't catch your whole question.
Yes, sir. So we were speaking about what happens in a normal situation where there's a broken home and a single parent situation. Normally, the woman is the one who takes that burden. That's the way that culture and society sees it. That's kind of the way that the law sees it. So the question was, if the roles were reversed and it was the man or the father who had to be the one to take that child under their care, is that something that you could see yourself doing as a father? Is that something that you would agree with for society?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, most definitely for myself. I would want to have my children. I would want to have the children for that, and as much as the work is necessary. And it goes past like the sufferings. There was a statement that was made, and I cannot remember who made the statement. I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's worth the sacrifice on the product that you're going to receive. That the thing that you have placed in that kid afterwards. It's not. Yes, it is suffering, but if you change your view on that, it's not really suffering; it's sacrifice. And that just goes along with the perspective of the individual. Um, and I was raised out of a single parent home. Youngest out of seven. I think my parents were divorced right when probably a year or two after I was born. And so it's about just really doing what you can if you are in that situation, and trying to be optimistic as much as possible. I am not one to look towards the negative things because it's so easy to do so. But yeah, short answer, yes, I would want to definitely do that.
Right on. Anybody else want to chime in?
I will. This is Janine. Was this directed strictly to the males?
No, this is for
Okay, okay,
everybody.
okay. Okay. Well, as a single mom, okay, and I raised five children. Where I biologically have five, raised six. Um, from that perspective of speaking of that, um, one thing about my situation or experience is, yes, as a woman, when you have to step up. to that role is very, 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 very hard. So I agree to the other answer that you said, having a male um, in place, especially, out of my children, four are boys. And I mean, smart, intelligent, successful, but I have to admit, I cannot teach them, or was not able to teach them, from my opinion, how to be a man. Because I feel learning to be a man, or having that leader role, is something that has to be caught. You can tell it all day long, or teach them, or talk to them, or say, hey, you should do this, but it's something I feel that a male should experience. So as young boys grow up, they have to be around that male. And unfortunately, my boys never had that, only me telling them that. So it's kind of like a 50-50 thing to me when I look at my boys. Half of them are like, oh, I got to step up and I got to be mama. Some of them are kind of like, as I watch them move, well, mama got everything. I go to mama for everything, which makes me wonder, are you going to be like that with a woman? Because you are supposed to be the head, not me. So that's why I completely agree that male has a most amazing role when it comes to that. Unfortunately for me, though, I didn't have the right kind of men that I would say, hey, here, you take them, or different things like that. Because of course, with us being women, we are most definitely, we incubated the child, we nourished the child, we took care of that child. And to just say, here, go to anybody, which to me has a lot to do with us as male and female, of who we actually choose, even if it's date, even though it's, all of these things are really important, especially from a biblical standpoint, when it talks about not fornicating. I understand, because fornicating can create broken homes, or homes that's disoriented, or raising children that are from different places, where they don't get to experience what it looks like to be at home and raised by a man. But on the flip side, how do I learn to be a nurturer and different things, like my mom? But I feel it's easier for a man to lead and learn to nurture like a woman, than it is being a woman that has to take that male role, because that is very, very hard. It's hard as hell.
Right on. Did anybody else want to chime in on that one?
I don't know if I can necessarily boil it down to just, gender or it being the opposite. I honestly think that that's part of the problem, right, in today's society, is that the courts and most people tend to favor the mothers. And so I don't think that it should just be that bias. I think that it really should be based on each person and where they are. Because, let's just face it, some women out here try to keep the children and try to have custody to be vindictive. And at that point, it doesn't become about what's best for the children. It becomes about, I'm going to be the one to be on top. And I personally don't think that that could be just a gender thing, right? I think that that's a person thing. So I don't know if I necessarily have alignment with, oh, I prefer for it to be the father over the mother because of ABC. And then y'all, I don't know if a lot of people here know, but I'm a numbers person. And so statistically speaking, there are more women in the world than men. So I don't think that that's by accident, right? I don't. So I just think that we have to do better is working together as a community and learning to be more tribal and supportive of the fact that unfortunately there are going to be situations where women are likely going to be in the home with the kids, because even if the father did say that they wanted to step up and take the kids, again, there are more women out here than men. So how do we balance that? How do men then not have any support? So it's very challenging for me to see that world where the man can take on truly all of his kids without the woman being able to support in some manner.
Well, Will, you dropped a couple of points that we definitely gonna circle back to. Did anybody else want to chime in on that? I see Brother Jazz just grabbed the mic. Okay, so I'm about to throw a little wrench at everybody. Um, on this next question. And this is just kind of circling back to what both Janine and Princess kind of touched on. We talked about, being better at choosing the right partner, working together, when you do, have a child with somebody. So I'm going to throw a little question. This is a multiple choice question. Um, and hopefully we'll have some fun with it. But I'm going to give you guys three scenarios. Okay, I want you guys, everybody, to pick two out of the three scenarios that you would never do. So these scenarios all involve you being involved with somebody through either casual dating or somebody that you're not married to. Okay, so I want you to pick two out of these three. It's a A, B, and C question. So pick two out of these three things that you would never see yourself doing. Okay, the first one, A, co-sign and invest in a mortgage with somebody that you're not married to. The second one, B, co-sign on a business loan with somebody that you're not married to. And then the last one, C, is procreate and start a family with somebody that you're not married to. I just want to get everybody's feedback. Pick two out of those three that you would never see yourself doing.
I'll go real. I'll go first, real quick. One and three. I would never co-sign on a house, and I don't see myself having children with someone that I would not be married with.
Okay, so A and C.
I'm gonna go ahead and say the same thing. Like I think it's one and three for me. Like my goal is, of course, you know what I'm saying, we all want to be able to have that child as a legacy, but it just all takes patience. And, from stories, from having friends that had kids and they experience, that's just something that I wouldn't want to do without being married or whatnot. So I'm definitely going to say one and three easily.
Okay,
It would be one and three for me, even though I've done three. But it wasn't intentionally planned children, and I didn't believe in having abortions. But if I didn't have the kids, it would be one and three.
okay. Ms. Devin, JB, y'all want to chime in?
I'm leaning towards one and two.
Okay, so one and two.
So so basically, messing up my credit for somebody I'm not married to. But three, having a kid with somebody out of wedlock. I mean, let's be honest, y'all. Now, all my kids are in wedlock, but let's be real. Like in terms of the situations we had. So, uh, and with that, even with number three, I feel like I still have more control because that's my kid, and even if we don't get along, I'm all about getting custody. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. All right, JB, before anybody else chime in, um, I tried to pick three situations where your credit's going to get fucked up if the other person skipped out in either situation. So I kind of disagree with you on the third one. I think that, if a person skips out and you left with that investment on your own, you could be facing some of the same credit issues, in my opinion.
Hold on. Let me make sure. Number three was having a kid out of wedlock, right?
That's right.
So how's having a kid gonna mess up my credit?
Well, because the thing about it is now you're left with the whole financial burden, right? And so let's just think about it. I think most of us here in the room were born or grew up in a broken home in a single parent household. Um, tell me if I'm alone in this. Um, One of the things I experienced as a child growing up in a broken home was that both of my parents, either my mother or my father,
Right.
um, they would either one of them would get a bill or something in my name as a child because their credit was fucked up at that
It's a
point.
management issue, and if it's
So
management
that's the
issue,
scenario I'm speaking on, JB. I know you got something going on in the background, but hopefully you heard me. I'm speaking upon some of the culture that happens in these broken homes, and a lot of these single parents, they end up getting a utility bill or something in their name, something in their child's name because their credit is fucked up from having to have all of the burden. So that's basically the scenario I'm speaking to.
Okay, I think they were fucked up prior to that, but I feel you.
Right on.
So, and then once again, and I think my standpoint's unique just from being a little bit more stable financially and ready. I'm able to handle any burden in terms of being solo with the kids.
I had mentioned maybe a couple episodes ago when we were on here talking, and child support came up. Um, Actually, we're working with finances. One thing that most people don't really realize because we don't see it as you know the whole total amount, but to raise a child, it costs about $13,000 to $14,000 a year. And if you went all the way till they were 18, we're looking at $250,000 to effectively raise a child with all of their needs. So when you think about that in a whole, and I like the way you did that question because I can look at a business loan, okay, maybe $50,000, $100,000. But when I look at myself, raising all five of my children alone financially, and $250,000 for five, that was $1,000,000, $250,000 easily, that came over a long term period of time. So you come off of more money, raising a child alone without any financial help than alone. So that's why I chose that one because I kind of know what that big number is, and it's very expensive when you don't have the other person contributing financially.
Right on. Right on.
So let me speak to that. So unfortunately, in a situation in a single parent household, a lot of people they operate out of basically they're in a like in a what's the word, man? I can't think. They're already operating out of a deficit. They're always it's always a panic, unfortunately, and basically what she said, like it's expensive, it's hard, but um myself, once again, having my first child, like I was a completely selfish person, y'all. Like I'm like, how can I have a kid? I'm this selfish. Uh, it took a shift in my mindset, like in terms of the cost, what it costs for my kids to have what they need or what they want. Like cost stopped mattering to me because it was more about their experience and basically in me providing a better life than what I had. So cost didn't even matter. Like I don't even think about what something costs. I'll just get it done. Period. So like I
Got
can
you. Good
absolutely
spending.
agree. 250 easy in terms of raising a single child. Easily agree with that. D- don't put them on no traveling
And I
teams,
agree
y'all.
with you, Jonathan, so much because that was one thing I had to shift from as a single mom, which caused me to, become an entrepreneur to start working in financial services. Was that okay? I got to stop thinking about how much this costs. Hell, I got to stop thinking about. I got to stop being in survival mode because the ultimate goal is what is the betterment of that child. If I keep worrying about what's happening today, I'm gonna lose sight of what I want that child to become. So I had to put myself in the position, and that's why I said it's hard, when you're a woman and you gotta start leading and you gotta, take that role, but you also have to step up and put yourself as a woman in a different, income bracket. Cause now men look at you intimidated, like, oh, she think this way or move that way. But I had to get myself in that position financially because it was all about my children having an experience. Am I able to take them out the country? Are we able to create memories? Are we able to live a lifestyle as if it's too two parents in a household, and it takes a lot to do that, and I had to do that, and I agree with you, wholeheartedly. We have to start thinking about that, because we most definitely got to think about what do we want to provide for that child, and what type of adult do we want that child to be. And when we're always, in survival mode or struggling, or the children are seeing that we're struggling or frustrated, that's not a great outcome for the betterment of that child. So I agree with you. Most definitely, we have to start thinking about the cost of it. But the cost is, and it does exist.
What was that cost again, Mr. Janine, per child?
It takes a quarter of a
She said,
million dollars to raise a child until they are 18 years old. 13 or
Hey,
14,000 a
hold up.
year.
Hold up. Hey, I'm a little hung up, Janine. I appreciate what you said, but when you said you put yourself in a different income bracket and dudes start looking at you different, that's a whole nother episode right there. I got plenty to say about that.
Baby, I want to get that episode popping. You hear me? I want to get that one popping. Because most men think women are not submissive when they make high incomes. Some are, but if you remain biblical, your income has nothing to do with who's the head. So I would love to
Uh-oh.
talk about that. That needs to be,
Uh-oh.
a co-ed one right
We
there.
need an episode about submissive. That in
Mm.
itself
Yeah.
is a topic.
Look at
The
God bringing
word
me
never
back in on a
said
good
that
topic.
the woman take the lead if she make this and that. The word never said that.
Hey,
And
hold
women
on.
have to understand, and we have to understand, and we have to understand what submissive means. Submissive, when
Hmm.
God created Adam, he brought Eve on to be his helpmate. And if God bless
Hmm.
you with a helpmate who can bring home some paper, the woman gotta know you are a helpmate, and that's a
Hmm.
blessing that you can bring some paper. But that don't put you in the head, baby. It doesn't put you in the head.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah,
Uh,
fuck all that.
Hmm.
I got something to say, man. So
Uh-oh.
anytime anytime I examine these topics, I always think from a perspective of layers. And I heard the previous question. The man by design is supposed to be the hunter, the gatherer, the provider, things of that nature. So anytime you come from a place of a broken home, it's not supposed to be that way. And the man really isn't supposed to be the person who is solely taking care of the kids or being the main provider. We don't birth kids. So that's a whole nother topic as well. But I want to talk about the supplemental things that the government does, that things like welfare, Section 8, things of that nature, that actually broke up our homes, and it didn't force us to figure out ways to stay with each other and try to keep a traditional dynamic amongst ourselves. You know what I mean? So you got women out here, either they making money, or if they not making money, if the man is taken away by drugs or jail, or he's just a deadbeat or whatever, a woman can always go seek help from the government, and that effectively eliminates who we are as men. You know what I mean? It kind of depreciates us as men. So uh, I just think I don't think that men should be particularly in that role. Men should be out here trying to make things happen for their family. And the way the economy is set up now is forcing women to be the man of the family. You know what I mean? So I'll just leave that there.
Wait.
I keep saying we need to do
We appreciate
co-eds.
that.
Y'all talking about y'all still need to hear. Come on now.
Ms. Devin, I think that we do have some conversations we do still need to have separately, but there are some conversations that we should start preparing to have as a co-ed group, and I do like that what Miss Janine and Miss Princess suggested with the whole concept of submission. I think that would be a good subject matter for us. But you guys brought up some good points on the sort of the burden of the woman, right? Like it being that hard. I think it would be hard for any single parent because it's not meant to be that way. Like Jazz brought up, the dynamic really should be a stable two parent home because there's a lot of advantages that you can get from a mother and a father, having both of them in the home. And most of us didn't grow up seeing that. So that's where kind of the motivation for my questions come into play because I myself I grew up in a broken home. So I do want to ask if anybody else did grow up in a broken home. What was your takeaway from that? From a child, what are some of the things that you took away, and then now that you are an adult, if you grew up in a broken home, what would say will be your takeaway from that situation?
For
Okay,
me,
ask
it
that
was
one more time.
motivation.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you good, Devin? Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask him to say the question again because it was kind of loaded.
Yeah. So I was saying, I grew up in a broken home, and so for anybody else that may have grew up in a broken home, I was asking what would be your takeaway from that situation, either from childhood thoughts or thoughts as an adult with reflecting. What is your takeaway from growing up in a broken home?
So for me, it was motivation. Uh, just basically, so for me, it was I want to be better than my father. I want to be a better father to my kids than my father was to me. So, and and having resentment for that man, growing up, with what we went through, and then stepping into an adulthood and kind of understanding some of the stuff that he was going through, I could appreciate it. But once again, never, I'd never abandon my family the way he did. So for me, it was a definitely learning experience how to be a better person.
Right on. Anybody else?
So I'm at my kids' football practice, so if the background's loud, let me know. But I think, just from my perspective, like Jonathan said, sometimes we do it out of motivation. But what I've learned is sometimes me trying to overcompensate and make sure that I'm not giving my kids too much or not enough of what I got ended up giving them too much of things that they really didn't need at a certain age. Like, um, just, the relationship that I had with my dad, he was there, but he wasn't there. So kind of like when Princess was saying, you can have a parent in the home that's not really in the home. So my dad was in and out the home, and I feel like sometimes he gave me a little bit too much sense of independence to where I had to learn how to fall back and learn my role as a woman because I seen my mother have to be the man and the woman majority of the time. So parenting my kids from that space, I see how now after going through counseling, it's like I have to reteach them certain things because I'm teaching them now from a healed space versus a survival mode.
Mm, that's deep right there. That's a whole nother tangent of a conversation. Did anybody else want to chime in on that?
I could speak on that. Um, as when I grew up, it kind of was 50-50 up until I turned 13. My mom and dad was together, and then after that, they divorced. She took us from Arkansas. We moved to Detroit, and it
Detroit.
was yes, I was born in Detroit, but I was raised in Arkansas. But yep, we
Oh yeah.
moved back to Detroit, and it was strange because I think subconsciously because when my mom left my dad, that's the day she decided to tell me, because I was very close with my dad, she decided to tell me that he was not my dad, uh pregnant with me. So the whole time, I carried
Hold
them at
on,
home.
Miss Janine. Hold on, Miss Janine. You was cutting out. I think the last part I heard is your mom told you that that wasn't your dad.
Yes, told me it wasn't my dad as we were getting on the airplane going to um Detroit to live with somebody I thought was my uncle, but that was my mom's boyfriend. So y'all follow me. Go
Um,
with me,
um,
okay? So
the uncle.
so, I found out that my oldest brother father was my real dad. And so as age of 13, that was very confusing because the only person that I knew that I was very, very close with was not my biological father, which today he still treats me as his child. We never had that conversation, even though I know he's not my father. But the point that I'm making is I think subconsciously Because the crazy part is, when you a child, you really don't know who is who daddy, but out of my siblings, I have four brothers. I'm the only girl. We have four different fathers, which I thought my younger brother, we had the same father, but no, my brother older than me, we had the same father. But anyway, trying to process all of that, I've never been married. Okay, I've never been married. And I think I kind of, like I mentioned earlier, I caught some stuff, whether I was taught it or not. I kind of caught it, and I have four children, four boys, one girl, four different fathers, just like my mom subconsciously. I mean, and I mean, not subconsciously, but I think it happened subconsciously, because that was something I was like, okay, well, I'll do my own thing, my own kind of way. Meaning, I want to be married. It never happened that way, and so I think it's very important, because as a child we never know how we process stuff. We never know how will we react, from certain things that we saw or didn't completely understand. But I did exactly the same thing that my mom did, and I think that was just something that I caught, if that makes sense. And I don't remember what the question was. I was trying to answer the question, I forgot it, but I don't know if that answered the question or not, because I kind of forgot it, just even
No,
saying it.
that answered the question. I was just asking about our takeaways from growing up in single parent situations.
Oh, okay, I caught more than what I was actually taught.
Hmm.
I think I did.
Did anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yo, what was the question? I'm sorry, I'm kind of in and out of it. I'm trying to listen.
Yes, sir. So we were speaking about if you grew up in a single parent home or a broken home or not, and what was your takeaway from that, either from a child standpoint or in reflection as an adult? What's your takeaway from growing up in a broken home?
Well, me personally, well, I was adopted. Well, you know this already. You know me. Um, well, growing up in the system, in and out of foster care, in and out of group homes, I never felt a sense of love, and I still deal with that to this day at 39 years old. I deal with that. Just not really knowing how to love. You know, and I think that's why I had a lot of broken relationships. And I live vicariously through my children. I try to give them everything that I didn't have. I wanted that father figure, that love, that support, that guidance. So I can truly understand that I'm dealing with those traumas now, that I'm in therapy now, trying to get a hold of things now. So I can truly understand coming from a broken home and trying to do right by your children, but at the same time still dealing with your personal insecurities.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't want to be a spoiler, but a few of you have actually brought up this dynamic, right? So the sisters on their next episode that'll be airing next week, on their next episode, they're speaking about the concept of nurturing through the trauma, nurturing with trauma. And I believe in this last episode, they spoke about that from the aspect of motherhood, parenting, and still trying to be nurturing to the children, raise them up in healthy situations amidst the trauma that they may have gone through before they were parents. So I do think that is a very complimentary conversation to some of the points that you guys are making. But I did kind of just want to ask about that because that dynamic they spoke about it from a motherhood standpoint. I think that dynamic can exist whether you're a mother or a father. Like Mr. Rogers just talked about some of the things that he felt a void from in his childhood. He still has to deal with that as an adult and as a parent. Miss Janine, in a lot of her commentary, she speaks about, some of the traumas that she experienced as a child and how she worked very hard not to deliver certain messaging to her children, right? So let's speak on that. What do you guys say to that? Because I don't think that that's something that our parents were emotionally intelligent enough about. I do feel like that there was a lot of unresolved trauma that parents and grandparents went through, where my generation Like Miss Janine said, we caught some of that same fire, some of that same crossfire from unresolved trauma. So, what would you, if we had to speak to that, what are some tips or what are some things, some advice that you would give to either parents or people that are going to be parents in the future? How do you create that balance and separate some of your traumas so as not to pass those down to our children?
I kind of talked about this in our episode that's gonna air, but we gotta learn to give our kids a safe space. I know we talked about it here too. Just the things that our kids are going through nowadays are completely different. I just made a post the other day. Like I remember in high school, the only drills that we had to focus on was like tornado and fire drills. Our kids nowadays are experiencing active shooter drills in their school. We have to be open to giving them a space, judgmental free, to express that. Like I ask my kids questions all the time, and I've also created an atmosphere where they know that whatever they say is not gonna come back. I mean, it got to the point where, depending on how heavy the conversation is, I'll give my kids a hall pass. Like, say what you need to say, even if you think it's gonna hurt my feelings, even if you think it's gonna come off disrespectful. I want you to say it so that we can then address it. If it's something I need to apologize for, um, growing up, I didn't have that space. Like it was what I say goes. What happened in this house stays in this house. It was isolation, to be honest. You know, we were just isolated with these um, trauma rules under our home, and we couldn't tell anybody outside the home for the sake of peace because then we would get in trouble for quote unquote telling our parents business. So um, I encourage my kids, if they ever feel unsafe and they can't talk to me about something, then find somebody to talk to. Like, so I think just creating that space for them is essential to making sure that they understand emotions and how to process and express them.
I agree. I'm the same way with. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the same way with my children. You know, I let them know you can talk to me about anything. I always let them know trouble is easy to get into, but hard as hell to get out of. Don't lie to me. You know, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes in my past. I told them about my past, told them the things that I've done. I just try to, let them know that you can talk to your daddy about anything, no matter what it is. You know, like the lady said, we didn't have that. We were scared to talk to our parents because we get in trouble. Now your parents will say, just tell the truth. You won't get in trouble, and you tell them the truth, and they whooping on you. So when I tell my boys, keep it 100 with me, let me know what's going on. You don't get in trouble. Just creating that space and that for them to be able just to talk to us. Talk to me about anything they need. Because I'd rather them talk to me than talk to somebody else. It's gonna lead them in the wrong direction. So just creating that safe space for them to talk to and for them to feel comfortable. You know. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You sure?
I don't know who's. Oh,
This princess.
how you, how you
Okay,
doing?
I'll go real quick. I was gonna say, I mean, I think a lot of it too is just really being humble, kind of like what Devin was talking about. And what I mean by that is like all humans have sources of toxicity within us, right? Like we hurt other people. None of us go through life without hurting other people. And the moment that you can realize that and recognize that with your children, you have to be able to recognize that you're going to have faults. And you have to be able to address that with your children in a safe space and making sure that you can provide resources to your children who can express that to you, who they can express that to, even if they can't express that to you. So like for an example, I don't have kids, but for an example, there's my niece who I'm that's my girl. Like she's like my second heartbeat. If I were to have a child, I would want them to be just like her. And she would express things to me about what was going on with her parents' situation that really traumatized her, but she didn't realize she was traumatized. And so we were able to talk to her about that, and at first it came out with her just acting out in certain ways, and it just came out of nowhere. Like she didn't used to behave that way. And so I guess I would just say that, one, recognizing that you likely have sources of toxicity in you definitionally because you're human. Some people say we're human, we fail, but I mean, toxicity is the real thing. That I would label some of that as. And then, secondly, is going to be making sure that you have resources, whether that's child therapy, whether that is, close friends, aunties, uncles of your children, making sure that you help those kids to develop healthy relationships with other adults because you can't be the solution all the time on your own.
Yeah, so I want to kind of piggyback off of that because um, I think it starts with the parents and the parents finding tools to actually handle those type of situations because we're dealing with generations of trauma, and a lot of this trauma was directly transferred from one generation to the next. So it wasn't just mama, it was grandma, great grandma, and once you get past great grandma, you talking about society and as a whole. Like, it was a lot different back then. So all of those things were transferred onto us, but we don't have the tools. We're kind of just taking shots in the dark. So it's like, I mean, get therapy, find somebody to talk to, and find out what tools you can use to break that cycle, and then you can use those tools to get through to your children. Because um, if you just winging it and coming up with your own ideas, and you're carrying around generations of trauma, it's not just your trauma. It's like the trauma that you're dealing with from past generations as well. So I say find out find out where you can get tools. If it's therapy, books, whatever you need to do to figure out tools that you can use for that. I mean, some of the techniques are cool, but I think it should go beyond that. Like, I think self healing and really trying to um, work on yourself as well, and that'll be a good way to transfer that to your kids.
I
Right
want to
on.
piggyback off of that as well. And brother, you said it earlier. It takes a high level of emotional intelligence, a high level of emotional um, maturity to be able to do it. And that was the biggest thing for me in order to develop that was to say, okay, do I get caught up in my emotions of today? Or do I focus on the end result? I'm a visionary. If I could see the end, none of the middle, which is gray, matters. And the end, when it comes to our children, is what is best for them. What can I do as a parent because I'm a good steward over my children to make them a better person? What can I do as a parent to not add an extra burden on my child that's living in a home without their what can I do? And that was always to do the best that I can do, never say anything bad about the father, because the truth is that's the child and they love the parents equally. They have no idea of money, how much money you spend and how much they don't. They love you the same, and I always want kept that in mind, and I always did my best not to carry that. So, I can go to their games, me and they dad's girlfriend or whoever and the other kids, we can sit together at the game. They're welcome to come to the house. If I cook Sunday dinner, they can eat. It was never that where my children saw any kind of feelings the way we may have felt with each other. None of that matters because in a child's eyes, all they want to see is happiness. They want to see love. They want to see their parents get along if they're not in the same house. They want to see that their siblings can be around them. And that's the type of environment that we have to think about, not grown folks' emotions and why we fell out and who you did this and what you said to me and about me. I've always tried not to show those emotions, to my children. And now that they're all are pretty much adults, and they'll learn about the other one on their own. My daughter had a conversation. She said, "Ooh, me and my daddy had a conversation about you, and he told me some of the stuff he used to do, and da da da. And you let him come over, and he could bring the other kids, and you could feed them, and you never." She said, "I would have never thought in a million years." And I said, "Well, you're not supposed to see that because that's your dad, and I don't want anything like that to influence them." So that's very important that we, as the adult, push aside the adult feelings and emotions and make a great environment for the children. And that's the best thing that we can do because that's what's going to help them long term.
Really.
Yeah, no,
Listening,
those.
Go ahead, Jazz. Go ahead.
Yeah, those kind of go hand in hand, and that's what I was what I was playing to is more fundamentally who you are as a parent. Like you got to work on yourself so you can provide the proper guidance and tools for the kids. And a lot of us aren't equipped with those tools. So that's basically what I was saying. Like just that will help the kids and help you get to that end result faster if you could, you know what I'm saying, work on yourself and equip yourself with the proper tools to get that done. You know what I mean? So you're
Yeah,
not
you
just
know,
out here winging it.
I agree with that, man, and that's one of the things I do want to be respectful of time. So we'll wrap up here shortly, but just speaking about generational curses, that was one of the generational curses for anybody that knows me personally is well aware of. One of the things that I've always tried to avoid is creating a broken home, having children out of wedlock, because of some of the traumas that I went through, and so in terms of breaking generational curses, like Jazz and Miss Janine said and hit on, it starts with the person, right? It starts with the individual who ends up becoming a parent, for them to work on themselves, work through their traumas, confront themselves, so to speak, right? But we don't do that as a community, right? Like, you know, we're out here procreating, we're having babies by people
Breaking up, Rod.
my mentality about therapy and healing, which has changed significantly throughout the years. So if I'll
You
ever,
dropped out for a minute, Rod.
oh, can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
um what I was saying was, as far as the generational curses, is if there's any generational curses that you are seeking as an individual to try to break in your family lines, I just want to speak on those. And I was given a couple of examples for myself. One of those for me was not creating a broken home, and then the other one was for being actually an advocate for therapy. I do believe that every human being can use and benefit from therapy. I think that your mental health should be treated no differently than your dental health, your physical health, and that's something that I had to transition to in terms of thought process. So I know I gave it kind of a loaded preface, but what would be a generational curse that you would say as an individual you're trying to break in your family bloodline?
I can go first. Mine is I only have one daughter, and I do not want her to do the same thing I did, which was the same thing my mom did, and that was having children out of wedlock. But I have those conversations with my daughter. My mom didn't have them with me. Never said to do it or not to do it. I just caught it, but I straight up talked to my daughter about that, and talk to her about what not to do, how not to do, how she has to most definitely move when it comes to that. Because I don't want her to have to, live a young life automatically going into nurturing. Nurturing is something women get, easily, or but to get it, like I became a mother at 22 in college. So it was hard, going to school, still doing the things. It just was hard. And I wouldn't want her to have a hard life like that. But if it happened, I'm still here to support her at the same time.
Right on. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I think, like, even in my position, what I'm saying, despite the fact that I can relate to a lot of things as far as broken homes, because, like I said before, I was raised in a home with both of my parents, and, what I'm saying, they kind of groomed me to understand the situation of starting a family. So, even at the age of 18, I was dating my high school sweetheart, and I ended up getting her pregnant. And throughout that circumstances, what I'm saying, her father made her get an abortion, would hurt me. But as I look back, what I'm saying, it was kind of a blessing for me, because I wouldn't know what my position would be, as far as even at the age of 36, going through with a lot of transactions, what a lot of my friends go through as being a parent. So me being at the age of 36 and just really finding that someone that I can marry and then having a family, that's honestly my goal. So as far as, breaking a lot of curses, that's my attention as far as, being in that position that my mother and father was in. Because, they had me like, even though they actually had me 2 years before they got married, but, still.
I'll chime in. I One of the things, like, I think I heard someone else say, I'm big on mental health in my family, creating safe spaces, letting them know how and when and where to talk about their emotions. But I also have been teaching my kids about financial literacy, credit. I'm not the best educator. As I'm learning, I'm teaching them, so we're kind of learning together. But I know I all I understood was struggle because that's how my mother showed me. She didn't explain to me bills, credit cards, none of that. So my son is 15. He has a bank account. He's an authorized user on my credit card, and I help explain why I do things for him so that he can understand and try to put him in a position where he doesn't have to struggle.
Love that. Love that. Anybody else?
I would say, along the lines of Devin, the entire wellness of my being. I come from a family where we don't really have that many broken homes. I'm very fortunate about that. My grandmother raised 10 children. What I would say rather successfully, almost entirely on her own, right? No one was really strung out on drugs. We did not have a family of incarcerated lifestyles or gang lifestyles. Divorce was not very common in my family, but a lot of us do not have the financial wellness that we should have, as well as even the mental or physical wellness. We are a very spiritually grounded family and we're very strong in that regard, but we're lacking in other areas, which is also not biblical. God wants all of his people to be completely prosperous. And so I'd say I'm definitely trying to break the curses of feeling as if we don't have to be educated in all areas other than spirituality and biblical areas. So rounding out our wisdom and our wellness.
Right on. Right on. I love that. Can't wait to have kids with you, princess. Sound like you're gonna be a real good mother.
Yes, yes, my kids gonna have the best father. No shade to none of the other fathers on the line.
Right on. Right on. So, I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping us up here. But I did want to just touch on the key points from just wrapping or summarizing what everybody is kind of giving me. I think that the whole process of us as a culture, as a community, breaking generational curses. Does start with information and knowledge. A lot of folks to hear tonight mentioned resources, seeking out the resources, access to the resources. The resources are there, right? Whether we're talking about professional help, for your mental wellness, or some programs that may be out there to help with some of the parenting, the struggles with parenting. Those resources are out there, but in our community, we tend to be in the dark in terms of information and knowledge. So I do love the fact I love everything that everybody said. Just trying to change the narrative in our community. I think it does start with information and knowledge. Us spreading information and knowledge. Us sharing resources, networking in some of the ways that we've been doing with these unpacking sessions with the Blacked Out Couch. There's a lot of different organizations out there that specialize in mental health. Ms. Devon is the founder of Lifted KC, which specializes in mental health for Black men. We have to spread the word about these resources, these organizations, right? One of our speakers on episode 5 for Broken Homes, Generational Curses, Mr. Ryan Harvey. If you're not familiar with him, he is a single father that is doing wonderful, tremendous things in his community, and he's working diligently to try to change the narrative with men. As a matter of fact, he's actually doing a workshop
this Saturday with Lifted KC, and it's actually a workshop about the absence of a father. This workshop is for young girls age 13 and up. We got to spread the word about events like this, right? To expose some of our youth. I think this workshop is a beautiful idea. Coming, bringing in our young daughters, some of our young girls in our community to be able to sit down, experience, have some interactions with some fathers that are great men in their community, because a lot of our youth don't see that, whether they are sons or daughters. So definitely we have to spread the information, spread the knowledge on things like this. So I do want to thank everybody for tuning in, for tapping in, speaking, giving us feedback and commentary tonight. These sort of spaces are definitely necessary for us to grow and build a better community and to be better versions of ourselves. So appreciate you guys for tapping into this version of Unpacking. Make sure you tap in next week for the Sisters podcast episode 6, which, like I mentioned earlier, they're going to be speaking about nurturing with trauma. And this particular episode, they're going to focus on motherhood. So I'm very excited myself to tune into that episode and get my notepad out, because I'll definitely be there for their unpacking, which will be 2 weeks from tonight. So did anybody else have any questions, any comments, or any feedback? All right. Well, look, we appreciate y'all tuning in with us tonight. Everybody have a safe rest of their evening. And as we head into this weekend, peace, love, and blessings. And I hope we heal.